I think one of the reasons that people enjoy Columbo is that we go into such detail in terms of explaining to the audience exactly how the crime is committed.
He didn't carry a gun. He didn't drive a flashy car. He wore a wrinkled raincoat, smoked cheap cigars, and mumbled like he'd lost his train of thought. But Lieutenant Columbo wasn't just a detective. He was a revolution. For over 3 decades, this rumpled, polite, just one more thing cop with a beat-up Peugeot and a never-seen wife quietly dismantled the most arrogant minds on television, one misplaced clue at a time. But behind the slow burn of his interrogations and the international love for the show was a story even more bizarre than the mysteries he solved. From a canceled stage play to a script that terrified network executives, from backstage battles to forgotten episodes, and from a shelved final case to a worldwide internet revival, Columbo's journey is one of television's most unlikely legends. It began not in a boardroom, but during a Hollywood writers' strike in the early 1960s. 2 desperate screenwriters, Richard Levinson and William Link, found themselves locked out of regular TV gigs and came up with a workaround. Live television wasn't covered by the strike. They wrote a mystery called Enough Rope for NBC's Chevy Mystery Show, working fast and playing sneaky, even tricking their own agent just to get it made. The detective in the story wasn't even supposed to be iconic. He was a placeholder, a literary riff on Dostoevsky's soft-spoken, brilliant sleuth, Porfiry Petrovich, from Crime and Punishment. Yet that same soft-spoken detective, clumsy, persistent, sharp, would become Columbo. His first appearance wasn't Peter Falk, but actor Bert Freed in a one-time 1960 broadcast. Audiences were intrigued, but it wasn't until the story was adapted into the stage play Prescription, Murder in 1962 that Columbo found momentum. Veteran actor Thomas Mitchell took on the role on stage, his final before passing away. It wasn't until 1968 that NBC turned the play into a made-for-TV movie and cast Peter Falk, who wasn't even the first or second choice. The studio had approached Lee J. Cobb and Bing Crosby first, but both turned it down. Falk was a risk, but he transformed the role. His Columbo wasn't slick. He was cluttered, chaotic, and constantly underestimated. His raincoat wasn't a prop. It was a $15 coat he bought himself in New York and refused to take off. The beat-up Peugeot he drove? His idea. Even the way he delivered his lines, pausing mid-sentence, forgetting names, pulling out irrelevant questions, was strategic. He was playing mind games. When Falk improvised or looked distracted during a scene, it wasn't random. He was deliberately throwing off the guest actors who played killers. The tension you saw on screen, it was real, and so was the charm. But here's the twist that made Columbo special. In every episode, you already knew who the killer was. There was no dramatic reveal at the end. The mystery was in the unraveling, watching how Columbo, with his bumbling manners and sharp eyes, would piece the crime together and corner the culprit. It was a gamble. NBC executives hated it. They thought audiences would lose interest without a traditional whodunit. They also hated that Columbo didn't appear until 30 minutes into the pilot. Viewers, they feared, would change the channel before he even showed up. But they were wrong. Columbo's slow burn formula became a cultural phenomenon. It wasn't about action. It was about intellect. Viewers loved the rhythm. See the murder, meet the killer, then wait for the quiet detective to politely, but persistently destroy their perfect plan. The show became a masterclass in psychological warfare disguised as polite conversation. Each detail mattered. A dirty ashtray, a wine glass moved slightly, a thermostat set too low. Columbo never needed a gun. He used logic, memory, and social awkwardness as weapons. And at its heart, the show had something few detective series did: social commentary. Columbo was working class. His suspects weren't street thugs. They were surgeons, CEOs, artists, film directors, and politicians. People with wealth, power, and mansions. Columbo's car was falling apart. His shoes were scuffed, but he never bowed. He made them uncomfortable, poked at their egos, and took them down piece by piece. That dynamic resonated. He wasn't just solving crimes, he was flipping the social order. And the guest stars, legendary. Leonard Nimoy, Johnny Cash, Patrick McGowan, Martin Landau, William Shatner. Big names begged to play the killer. One young director even got his big break directing Columbo, a 24-year-old named Steven Spielberg. Peter Falk was so impressed, he said, "This guy is too good for TV." He was right. Spielberg went on to change cinema, but he always credited Columbo as one of his early turning points. Still, not everything was smooth behind the scenes. Falk fought producers constantly. He rejected certain guest stars. When NBC tried to change the format to make Columbo more standard, Falk, Levinson, and Link all threatened to quit. And they meant it. The network backed down. But the show took odd turns in its revival years. In 1992, No Time to Die aired, a Columbo episode with no murder, just a high-stakes kidnapping. It felt more like a crime thriller than the thoughtful mysteries fans expected. The 2003 finale, Columbo Likes the Nightlife, tried to modernize the detective, throwing him into rave scenes, neon clubs, and tabloid culture. He wore a feather boa. He retrieved a toenail from a nightclub toilet. Some fans were horrified. Others, strangely, loved the surrealism. Yet, behind the scenes, something even more heartbreaking was happening. In 2007, Universal Studios quietly began planning Columbo's last case, a true farewell to the character, written for Peter Falk, who was then nearing 80. The script was beautiful, a modern murder involving sonic technology, a clever twist involving a barely audible sound, and a cameo by Larry King. It was everything a final episode should have been. But ABC rejected it. They said no one would watch a movie starring an 80-year-old detective. And while fans waited, hoping, Falk's health was deteriorating. After a dental procedure in 2007, his memory started slipping. In 2008, his family confirmed he had Alzheimer's. By 2009, Falk no longer recognized people. The man who once outwitted every killer on television couldn't remember being Columbo. The final episode was never made. He passed away in 2011, quietly, at age 83. It should have ended there, but it didn't. During the pandemic lockdowns of 2020, something wild happened. Columbo exploded again. New generations, stuck at home, discovered the show on streaming platforms. They didn't care that it was slow. They loved that it was slow. They weren't turned off by the old-fashioned pacing. They were drawn to the quiet justice, the gentle intellect, the way Columbo took down smug elites with a raised eyebrow and a forgotten pencil. On TikTok, Twitter, and Reddit, Columbo became a meme. Fan videos reimagined him as an animated detective solving tiny mysteries. Artists created parodies, edits, and timelines. Even Among Us mods referenced him. And suddenly, the phrase, "just one more thing," was everywhere again. What made this revival magical was that nothing had changed. No reboots, no gritty remakes, no CGI, just the same raincoat, the same Peugeot, the same quiet stare. A new generation saw what the old ones always knew. Columbo wasn't just a detective. He was a reminder that kindness, curiosity, and intelligence still win. That sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one asking simple questions. And now, decades after it was almost canceled, shelved, and lost to time, Columbo is more alive than ever. Not bad for a detective who never even told us his first name.